All right. Well, welcome everyone. We're super excited to hang out with you this Friday afternoon. I mean, it's a little bit drizzly here, but super excited to hang out. We have an amazing couple of topics that we're excited to go through today. First of which, we'll be talking a little bit about our MSP trends report. And so similar to our IT trends report, we're also doing another one in terms of MSPs. We found some interesting factoids that I will go through here in a little bit. But today, with me, special guest Gabriel. And so we recently welcomed VaultOne into the JumpCloud family, and so we're going to be spending some time talking about privileged access. What does that mean? How can we use it? And a lot of other fun things as we start to dive into it. So my name is Chase. I'll be your host today. I'm Director of Product Marketing here at JumpCloud. And so I'll be excited to dive into some of the MSP trends reports that we recently uncovered. So let me hit some buttons and make sure that that pops up in the right place. We start to share some of those fun things. All right, perfect. So very similar to our IT trends report. And so what we do is we like to go out and survey a bunch of different IT, and in this case, MSP professionals in terms of understanding a little bit more around what's happening across the industry, what types of things we can take advantage of. I know everyone might not be an MSP here today, but if you're like me and if you want to quit your job, you're like, oh, that's something I could take up and do, right? And run a business around it. But we wanted to pull in some of those different key insights, especially around some of the hyper growth MSPs that we're seeing, I'd say across the industry. And so real quickly, one of the things is like, okay, what does that mean, Chase, right? And so when we think about hyper growth or kind of high growth MSPs, there's a couple different things that they do a little bit differently that I thought would be really interesting for this group to share today. And so when we think about all those different elements, one, in general, the industry kind of continues to grow. So over 90% of MSPs saw at least a 5% growth, which is great, right? And so that kind of keeps above numbers. But then we also saw that there's about this 20% that grew much more significantly. And so we wanted to take a dive into is like, okay, what sets those MSPs apart? And if there's any other things that we can start to learn from. And one of the elements that we started to, at a broad level, start to understand is that a lot of these high growth MSPs, they're much more adaptable and open in terms of the types of technologies that they're bringing on and supporting for clients. Where I'd say, you have a lot more traditional MSPs that are say, hey, this is my stack. I'm going to do this. I'm going to implement it across these different clients. But what we found in the high growth MSPs is they have much more of a variety of not only applications, but their AI usage, and then also how they're thinking about devices and implementation and kind of what that mix looks like across their fleets and then also for their clients. And so one of the first things that we saw is like there's a variety of SaaS applications. This shouldn't be surprising for a lot of folks. There's so many more applications out there today, especially anything kind of basically .ai attached to it. I think there's 5 to 10 companies every week that are newly minted. And so a lot of organizations are looking at different types of applications to solve a lot of different use cases. And so the higher performing MSPs, we've actually found that really can own and control a lot more of those different SaaS applications. And one of the things this really helps with is, okay, that helps if you know kind of what's happening, right? But we also have this notion of shadow IT that lives pretty much anywhere. And so we've also found that a lot of the high growth MSPs took a much more strict approach, and even like moderate growth in terms of how they think about SaaS management, how they start to uncover what all that different usage looks like. And so that becomes a really important component as you start to think about not only managing the sheer breadth of what is available within the marketplace, but then also what are the types of controls. So there's kind of like this ninja balance that a lot of the high growth MSPs are managing as they're bringing that into the market. And then everyone's favorite topic, AI, all the things. But what was really interesting is kind of how much AI usage is both kind of leveraged both internally, but also in terms of how they're managing that for their clients. And so we actively use internal processes around AI. This is really what you're starting to see kind of go across. And so you can see everyone's doing it, even within kind of the stable group and moderate group, but even in the high growth, you kind of see this maturation, if you want to say, around AI usage, around those internal policies, what they're starting to do around all those different elements. So if you're not doing AI in your newly minted MSP, right, and think about that, and especially in your own IT operations, kind of how this manages across those different areas. And then also just the management around it. And so there's more people that, again, whether it is applications, you got your own LMs, your kind of whatever that architecture that you might have either for your internal organization, but then also in terms of MSPs, how they manage that for their clients, that is also seen as a key differentiator. And so I'd say this is a little bit different. And then you see, I would say, a lot of other past growth around MSPs has been much more security driven and kind of have this shift of kind of taking on more of a security role. I still think that is important, but now you kind of have this whole AI layer that's really kind of managing how people are growing and how fast they're growing in terms of the types of clients that they're able to take on and kind of grow their business, which I thought was interesting as you think about all those different elements and some takeaways that everyone can take back into, your own internal organization. And last time, this also shouldn't be super surprising if you've hung out on previous IT hours or kind of seen some of these different elements where the winning mix is much more heterogeneous than it ever has been. And so Windows by and large is default, right? But how you can manage those different elements across Mac and Linux, that variety also drives a lot of growth when you think about what other organizations, clients, and other pieces might be looking for, and then also how they can kind of master that. And so again, the highest growth MSPs have this combination of much more diverse environments, but then also a lot more security. And so we saw that a little bit earlier when we think about SaaS applications, but we see it again here in the device management and say, hey, we really need to have those different types of policies that we can put down. And so with that, that was kind of the whirlwind trends report and some of the interesting insights that I pulled away from. There's a lot more around it. If you're interested, we can dive into a little bit more numbers. We'll add the link into the chat here so you can actually play around with it, download it, and kind of see other pieces that you might be having. So, and with that, I wanted now to hand over the mic and stage over to Gabriel, who we recently welcomed within the VaultOne acquisition in all things privileged access management. And the one thing that I will say before I hand it over is there's a very particular reason in terms of how we were viewing the market and why this was so important to us. And we really felt VaultOne is the most modern approach when you think about privileged access management. It's usually this kind of legacy, I would say enterprisey type of term that most people don't feel is kind of within their realm, right? You kind of have to be a certain size. And really the ethos that we love around Vault when we're welcoming into the platform is we really kind of have this notion of like, privileged access is for everyone, right? It's PAM for the people. We really kind of democratize this access and making sure that everything can be seen and secured as kind of like this privileged resource. And when you do that, you have this whole other notion in terms of how you think about security, visibility, what happens after you grant access, and you can see kind of that recording session. So there's so many amazing things that we can start to dive into, and I'm really excited about this. So Gabriel, I'll hand it over to you, and you can talk a little bit more about kind of all things privileged access, a little bit more about VaultOne, and take it from there.
Okay. Thanks, Chase. Thanks for hosting me here. Thanks for receiving me here. Thanks, guys, for separating time to hear more about privileged access management. Yeah, like Chase just mentioned, we have a lot of things that we can drive in. Uh, we don't have enough time to talk about everything pen related, but if you guys have any questions, please let me know. My email, I will write it down in the chat. And let's talk about that privilege access management inside the open directory platform that JumpCloud always mentioned, right? So we are here to provide privilege access control to that open directory platform. So if you are already a JumpCloud user, or if you already use JumpCloud in your infrastructure, probably you are going to already use MDM to control the user laptop, the user devices. You are sharing the JumpCloud console with your user to provide SSO authentication with like platforms. You are using the SaaS management to control every SaaS in our environment. But in the IT department, we need to talk about privilege accounts. A lot of companies they suffer with privilege abuse, and we are here to solve that. PAN driving everything related to protect the privilege accounts. So when we talk about PAN, we are talking about every types of accounts that you wanted to record the access. You don't want to share the secrets like passwords, credentials, keys with your user. I saw yesterday a company that they are already using a password manager to store passwords, but the user they need to go inside the password manager, grab the password, and insert the password whatever they want to insert. And if they are doing that, how I can be secure that they are not sharing that password with other users, or even inserting that password in like an Excel file or a note or stuff like that. So when we talk about hiding the password from the user perspective, that's when we actually implement zero trust environment. And PAN help the company to implement that types of zero trust. And inside the JumpCloud big open directory platform, we can talk about this area right here. And this is like just a zoom in into the topology. So when we talk about the PAN environment, we are talking about creating and providing a jump server between the user laptop and the company's resources. We call that jump server as VaultOne connector right now. We don't know if we're going to change that name, but it's the jump server concept here. So if someone needs to do a remote connection, a remote access using the remote protocols that you guys already know, like SSH, RDP, Telnet, VNC, or even if it's a database connection or just a website connection, a website authentication, HTTP, HTTPS, we can use the VaultOne connector machine as a bridge to connect my laptop to the company resource. And doesn't matter if it's like an internal resource or an external resource, because since the VaultOne connector is going to be installed and have communication between everything inside the company, we can control the access and provide the access even if it's internal resources. And using the VaultOne connector environment here allows me to not share the password with the user, record the session, provide a live session too. So if I, as an administrator, I wanted to see what Gabriel is doing during a session, I can watch that. PAN allows me to do that. And we have a lot of other features that we can explore. I know that a lot of folks here already know that PAN can change VPNs, can replace VPNs, can work simultaneously with VPNs to provide the secure that the VPN doesn't have, can work with API. So there is a lot of use cases that we can explore by using that jump server concept, that PAN environment here. And I want to talk about some examples of use cases, some examples of features. And if you read that and think that, oh, that may help me, please send us a message because yes, that can help you. uh, I unfortunately I can't like explore every use case today because of the time, but I want to talk about some of the most important ones when we talk about PAN use cases. We need to talk about remove the privilege credentials. This is very important because we don't want to share the secrets with the user and we don't want to stop them from work, right? My user needs to work, they need to do authentication, and PAN is not for stopping the user from work, but it's to provide the authentication from him without sharing the secret, eliminating the possibility to see the secrets, the passwords, and everything. And beside this main objective here, we need to be able to understand what the user did it on a session, right? So I saw a lot of administrators where they have a very good, a very secure environment, like they invest in a lot of money in firewall, creating a lot of rules in their network. But when we talk about, do you know what your user did it on a specific session? That's when a lot of administrators they like don't know how to answer that because they don't have the possibility to record the action, to record the sessions, to record the comments, or even stop and be proactive, security proactive about like understanding some behaviors. So PAN can provide all those types of audit trails to be explored, and those two main points here is where I wanted to explore today. So I have here an example of user access that I wanted to share, and just to talk more about the platform as well. So we have a very user-friendly platform. When we built this, we was thinking that we don't want to like require certification expertise to the user know how to use the platform. So PAN is not for having a very robust environment that only IT departments can use. No, a lot of companies they have privileged secrets on other departments outside IT, like finance, HR, stuff like that. And all of those users they can use VaultOne because it's very simple to use, but we are providing the robust security that your administrator wants. And let's talk about the access. I can authenticate into the platform using any SSO in the market, but I actually recommend to use JumpCloud account to authenticate. And right now I'm authenticating. Let me just authenticate first as an user, and then we can explore more. We have MFA. That is not a differential anymore. It's more like a requirement have an MFA. I can work with apps. I'm using JumpCloud protected app on my cell phone, and I can work with other types of authenticators as well. So this is the environment that we are providing to the user perspective. So I, as a user, I authenticated on the platform, and now I can start doing my job here related to the privilege accounts, right? If I don't want to authenticate using privilege account, there is no motive to like authenticate on Vault One. I can continue using the JumpCloud user console. And let's talk about those types of authentications. Starting with websites. This is one of the most used here because we can authenticate users on types of websites that you guys have privilege accounts, like root access on the AWS admin console, administrator access on a firewall console, or even the JumpCloud admin portal. So though the JumpCloud admin portal is one type of a privilege account, right? And we want to understand what the user is doing on that portal. And here I can manage that. I can provide the authentication and record everything. So let's do an example here. So if my user needs to authenticate on the AWS root account, I just need to click on Actions, Connect, select the credential. I'm informing to the user that his session has been marked to be recorded. So it's important to inform that. And if I click on Connect, there is where VaultOne is going to help the user with the authentication. And this is quite of interesting here because I'm going to authenticate the user without sharing the password, controlling the environment here. I have MFA inside VaultOne, so I can just go back here, copy the MFA, and validate that access. And right now, I'm authenticated on AWS with everything being recorded here. And what is happening here, guys, to this website? So AWS for me is one of the most important applications that I have. So I'm using the most like secure level of authentication inside Vault One. That most secure level authentication is a feature that we call WebShield. WebShield is a remote browser isolation technology that we develop inside the Vault1 connector machine, the Jump server machine. And that WebShield provides me another browser inside my own Google Chrome browser here. So if you guys saw my URL, this is not AWS URL. So I'm hiding the URL from the user perspective too. And I'm generating another browser inside my own browser here. So it's basically a virtual a VM running another browser inside my own Google Chrome with everything being isolated here. So if you guys have problems like user saving passwords on the browser, we can solve that because I'm isolated. So my browser doesn't understand that I just authenticated on another website. And I can't interact with anything cache related, cookie related. So I can't share cookies, for instance. I can't open, like, I can't interact with the dev tools. So if I open the dev tools on my browser here and I try to, like, interact with that website, everything is blocked. So I'm 100% isolated here with this remote browser isolation concept. And I can work normally here. So I can click on like EC2 and start my work real quick. And if I wanted to understand what my user did it, I will be able to watch the record after the session, or I can watch in real time what Gabriel is doing. So let's authenticate on that same platform now as an administrator user. We are providing the same platform, the same console for users and for administrator, but everyone here have their own profile. We can be very granular when we talk about roles, when we talk about permissions. So right now I'm going to authenticate as an administrator. I can use passkeys as well to authenticate to validate my MFA. And if I go here to the websites menu and search for AWS, I can see that Gabriel is connected right now, have an active connection. And if I wanted to see what Gabriel is doing, I will be able to watch in real time what he's doing. So this is one of the possibilities about uh, all these trails that we provide. And if I don't like what Gabriel is doing, I can disconnect him. I can disconnect, lock out the user for like at least 60 minutes, or I can even deactivate that user. So let's just only disconnect because I don't want to block my own user, and now I can't interact with that session anymore. So I need to authenticate again, but if I got lockout, I need to request for an administrator to solve that. So there is a lot of possibilities here. And let me do this other test now with the JumpCloud admin portal just to show something to you guys. I configured the JumpCloud admin portal to actually show the address bar of the VaultOne's browser that we are providing here. So this gray address bar is for that browser that we are creating inside my own browser. And I'm providing a screen with this black spaces because my monitor is too big. So like it's outside the normal monitor. But yeah. Uh, but the common use case here is to hide the address the address bar to be more like a clear vision from the user perspective. And I have MFA, but for that account, actually, I'm using the JumpCloud Protect app. So let me grab that just to validate the authentication. And now I'm in. I'm just authenticated on JumpCloud admin console with everything being recorded, and I can watch in real time, or I can even watch later what my user is doing here. So there is a lot of options for websites, but those same audit trails, those same hiding password features will work not only for websites, but for servers, for databases. For servers, I can use my own browser as a way of authentication. For instance, I just click on unconnect, and now I'm connected to a Linux machine without seeing the key of that machine. I can do my job here real quick with the live session, with the record option. I can authenticate in Windows machines if I wanted to. So if I click on connect right now, I'll be able to authenticate using my own browser. So if I don't like my browser, I can use a local client. Someone is trying to use this machine here. This is a demo environment. Yeah, we have a lot of options in here to authenticate and provide the audit trails, and that works for databases as well. So I can authenticate in the database without sharing the password and then recording every action. And the last thing that I wanted to comment about it is the how I create some examples of audit here. I have the possibility to see in real time what are the operation logs of the platform. And if I don't want to like see only the operation logs and understand what my user is doing on the platform, if I want to actually understand what types of connections my user they are doing, I have the session history menu here where I can see and search for every connection that my users did it in a specific date and time too. So if I wanted to see like the last 30 days, the connections that my users did in the last 30 days, I have a lot of options to filter related. So I can filter per user, I can filter per session, I can filter per like specific type of resource as well, resource name. I can even filter the duration of the session. So if I just wanted to search for sessions like that my users spend 10 minutes, I can do that. This is very good when the user have like other secure tools to manage some behavioral on the environment. For instance, I saw a company where they have a CM, and this CM push out an alert that someone tried to do a suspicious behavior in a specific quite amount of time, but not the real time, like only from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So they just go back to the platform here and search for sessions using that range. So there is a lot of options here. And if I wanted to see what like Gabriel did it on a specific session, I can do that and even filter like for databases. So if I wanted to watch what Gabriel did on that session, I will be able to see the commands. I will be able to even see the video of Gabriel. So the video is literally the screen of the user. So there is a lot of possibilities here when we talk about those kinds of examples. And yeah, that's it. I don't want to
Awesome.
if Chase wanted to comment something too, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, I think hopefully everyone can see there's a lot you can do with it. I mean, especially like the private like browser and browser experience that's super unique in the market, and you can imagine too how that really expands the ability for if you think about it's a traditional kind of PAM access. It was like really kind of cloud ops environments, maybe some databases, but now it's like you need to think about everything, right? Your Salesforce admins, your WordPress admins, anything else that will have a business impact across all these different elements. And you can think of it much more as securing credentials, other pieces, and you
yeah,
can really define what that visibility looks like. And then also to just the main area of just recording, seeing what is happening. It is really helpful just to understand what users are doing and kind of all those other
yeah,
pieces. So we're really excited to bring that into the fold. We got one question here from Jamie. In terms of PAM insights and directory insights. So I can give you a little bit of a sense in terms of how this is operating and kind of a future roadmap of what this looks like. So when we did this acquisition, we were really specific in terms of how we want to maintain data and then also essentially merge the two platforms into one, right? And so VaultOne is running on its own infrastructure right now. And so over time, we do want to get to the point where we are firing off directory insights and PAM insights into the same console and view. Right now, there are two separate ones, but we do have a roadmap item in terms of not only I would say, first order of business is kind of more the infrastructure side, but then also making sure that we can bring in other event levels, kind of merge the consoles over time, kind of making sure that all the visuals are kind of there. But we didn't want to wait because there's a lot of great stuff that I think is available now to JumpCloud customers. But yes, as we start to do this, there's a whole roadmap of features in terms of how you will start to see all these elements kind of merge back into one main platform, but they are two
yeah.
different pieces.
And another comment about that, if some customer they need to share pen events, they can share right now into CM tools as well. This is a very common use case. If they have a CM, this is going to be one of the first integrations. And like Chase mentioned, we are going to put that inside directory inside as well.
Yeah, and there's so many other pieces too. I know you showed like 12 different pings that we can do at the beginning. We only covered a couple here, but other elements too. You can kind of see how this kind of removes the need for a VPN, right? As you kind of
Yeah,
hop into other connectors, other pieces that we've been doing it for a while. Not to say that you should still you're at a coffee shop, obviously you need to spin
yeah,
something up,
mhm,
but in terms of like those different types of assets that you can guard around, and typically what we usually think about kind of sits behind a VPN wall or kind of other corporate resources, all those things. It's really all your resources right now that you can kind of have around this. So there's a bunch of other pieces that I'm excited to dive into probably in future episodes, and we'll have a lot more around this, but I just really wanted to show it off because I think it really is going to have such an impact in terms of how people think about just a general security posture and what's available to them.
yeah.
All right, perfect. We'll see if there's any other questions, any other thoughts, how people are feeling on a Friday. These are all very important.
Mhm.
So we'll give a couple minutes as they start to come through um, around some of those other elements. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank God. Yeah. I think people are just waiting for the weekend, right?
Doesn't hurt. You know, you got to have something.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, if there's any other questions, other pieces, you know where to find us. We'll be back again on a future episode. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We covered a lot in terms of, the MSP trends reports, kind of how we can see how modern high growth MSPs, right, and kind of translate that into the rest of the industry. And then also privileged access, a little bit more of how we're thinking about other pieces that we can have. And then also, Nathan, to your question on the password manager. Oh, and we also got somewhere around pricing, other pieces. As it relates to JumpCloud Password Manager, there are other bodies of work that we are continuing to iterate on our password manager. One is just kind of, I'd say, a slight change in the architecture, how we think about password manager. And then again, this will kind of come into the fold in terms of that other roadmap. And so we're making sure that there's going to be much more of a blending so you can kind of see that as well as those different areas. But right now, there are two different consoles, two different areas where you want to think about that. And then tied to your question about pricing, so it is per user per month, very similar to the rest of it. And we were happy to talk with, I'd say, your account managers, other pieces, and we can kind of look in terms of how this fits within the fold of making sure it's adoptable with your organization.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little bit more about pricing. It is a little bit more specific to each organization. The reason why I say that is coming back to the topology that Gabriel mentioned. You have this jump server connector notion, right? And kind of how that looks like. And that changes depending on how many concurrent sessions that you have, right? So if you have 10 people accessing things all at once, if you have 100 people, if you have 1,000 people, there's different loads and kind of demands on that. And so we kind of think about that in addition to kind of the number of users you have around. So that's why I don't have a hey, here's a universal answer, but it is a little bit more customized to everyone's environment. So we'll have more to come on that. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you here next time on the IT Hour. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.